Good evening, and this is The Real Joe Biden. I'm Boris Epstein, Strategic Advisor with Trump 2020, Mercedes Schlapp, Senior Advisor with Trump 2020.
Great to be here.
And Elizabeth Harrington, the National Spokesperson for the RNC.
So good to be here.
Great to be with both of
It's
you.
been the longest night ever. I don't know about this never-ending infomercial. How about, what do you guys think?
It was what President Trump said, a snooze fest. It's hard to get through all of that tired old socialist ideas that Bernie Sanders was just espousing.
Did they stand for the national anthem? I missed that part.
Well, that was
I
think that was my first tweet. Right, so Democrats like America now. Democrats like
the Pledge
God
of
now.
Allegiance. I'm serious.
Well, there was definitely a disconnect between the daytime programming, where members of the squad, Representative Presley, was praising Portland for rising up in the streets where they're burning the American flag. And then they were praising kneeling for the national anthem. And then all of a sudden at night, they put on this nice happy face.
It was like a Trump rally in the beginning.
Radical left.
So let's talk about
It would never be a Trump rally. There's only one Trump rally, okay? Let's be very
I
clear.
think they were trying to steal it.
Normally, their virtual events of Joe Biden maybe include 19 people. Right, Darren? Where's Darren? Darren?
So let me ask you a question. Let's go back to the beginning. What do we think of the format? Eva Longoria, Desperate Housewives, was that like 2005? Are we now? What do we think? Did it work? Did it fail?
She's trying to make a comeback in her career.
I think she's trying to be a CNN daytime host.
Maybe.
Maybe
I've
that's
got
a
a
new
couple
job.
spots she can substitute.
So what'd you think? Mercy, did it work?
You know, look, for them, it's the best they're going to be able to do. But what we've learned today is that Bernie Sanders is running for the Democrat president nominee. That was his speech. It was his moment. He didn't have it in 2016 because Hillary took the election from him. So he thought this was his night to say, I am your chosen leader. And the crazy thing about Bernie Sanders is he says, we're here to preserve the democracy. Don't get me wrong. Bernie Sanders is going to destroy the democracy with his socialist great plans that he has. I mean, what do you think, Liz?
Well, it's amazing because it's hard to, watching Bernie Sanders' speech, it's hard to know if it's Joe Biden the candidate or they're running on the virus from communist China, because that's all that Bernie Sanders promoted. And he says, a global economic collapse. My solution, let's spend $93 trillion on the Green New Deal and hike everyone's taxes and take over all the private industry.
But let me ask you,
it's absolutely insane.
Boris, let me ask you. He did mention, sweet old Bernie socialist comrade, did mention that he wants to that Biden would greatly expand health care. What does that mean?
It means Medicare
Decipher
for all.
it.
It means Medicare for all. There's no two ways about it. That's what Bernie wants. And we know that Biden is just an empty vessel for the far left, right? So when Bernie says greatly expand, it means universal, probably single payer, Medicare for all.
That's literally what the public option was designed to do. It said not even a Trojan horse like Joe Biden is for the radical left. It's just right there, according to the words of Jacob Packer, who invented the public
Who was the
option.
co-sponsor of Bernie's sweet, nice, little socialized medicine package?
Kamala Harris.
There you go. The commies hang out together once again.
I guess we're
I know,
going.
we're always
I love
like,
it. It's
Kamala, it's always...
It's night one. We're already going there, and I love it. I love it. There's
I know.
no doubt that this was a night full of radicals, full of far leftists, and old Republicans. What did you think of that? Susan Molinari, we had Meg Whitman, and then the one and only John Kasich in the middle of some two-road thing that really didn't work out. What did you think of it? What message did that convey to you?
I mean, I'm not sure it's convincing a single person. I don't think anyone was watching during. He's not exactly able to get a crowd. John
Kasich. I think he's so exciting. Just kidding. Just kidding. Kasich is terrible.
Well, and he also called Joe Biden a liar back in the day. So it's kind of interesting how they sell their souls to the soulless Democrats.
He should have been eating a hot dog or something.
Oh, that was
the
one of the
glory
most
days of
yes,
2016.
Let's talk
That would have been way more.
Let's talk about Kasich for another second, though. You're right. He called Joe Biden a liar in 2012, not that long ago.
Not that long
he
ago.
said Biden lied about being a good golfer. Well, he lies about everything else. And now Kasich tried to make Joe Biden seem like the second coming. So who's lying? Is it Biden?
It's all a
Kasich?
bunch of phonies.
They're
If
both
you're allowed
liars.
to use that
They're
word
both
anymore.
liars.
Maybe he wants to be like Secretary of HUD or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, Biden, give me a job. It's like Hillary Clinton. It's like, give me a job, Joe. So, he's opportunist. And obviously, he's got Trump derangement syndrome.
But his dad was a mailman, so maybe it's a sleeper agent trying to secretly elect President Trump with the MAGA hat and the Postal Service and the crazy conspiracy theories that Democrats are pushing tonight.
Liz, can you tell us more about the daytime programming? What you think? What you thought of it? Was there some crazy? I already saw on Twitter there was some really crazy stuff.
Oh,
right?
they had absolutely far left radicals. The pastor was best buddies with Louis Farrakhan, was saying, oh, if you support the border wall, you may be going to hell. Oh, that was not the so-called unifying message that they were trying to promote in the nighttime programming. It was a full-on radical left. Representative Presley was talking about Portland and rising up, literally endorsing that violence and attacks on the police. It's absolutely reprehensible. And then you tune in tonight and, oh, it's all kumbaya and the American flag. Well, they're burning it in Portland.
And that's not the only thing they're burning in Portland, right? They're burning stores, they're looting, they're rioting.
Federal buildings with
course.
people inside trying
And
to.
that's in Portland, that's in Seattle.
In
We have
Chicago.
Minneapolis,
Yeah.
in
And
Chicago,
Another
New York
point
City.
to bring up about Bernie Sanders, he mentioned it tonight. He didn't try to hide that fact that they're trying to end cash bail. The disaster in New York City, which is leading to crime skyrocketing, that's Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris's America. Skyrocketing crime, defunding the police, a radical agenda.
Great point, because they did not bring up the defund the police, interestingly enough, yet we know for a fact that their whole point is to redirect funds away from the police. We know that Kamala Harris has applauded L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti, who took away $150 million away from the Los Angeles Police Department. So it is interesting how they carefully played their words tonight. And they kept trying to push this idea that Biden and Obama's economic recovery was better than
What a
ours,
joke.
and that is a lie.
Might have been my favorite part. Michelle Obama trying to take credit for an economy which, remember, before the pandemic from communist China hit, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were trying to convince everybody, oh, well, this economy, it wasn't really that great, the Trump-Pence economic boom. And now all of a sudden they're saying, you screwed up what we created, which is such a total lie. They never hit low unemployment. They never hit wage growth like we saw under President Trump.
It took them 2 years to recover 40% of the jobs lost during that recession.
And let's talk about President Trump
how long it took
for a
us?
second. Tell us.
3 months, and we got 40% of the jobs back.
Historic low unemployment for African Americans, for Hispanic Americans, for women, for veterans, for disabled Americans, all under President Trump. And now, after the plague from communist China hit, a total rocket ship rebound, right?
They didn't mention the
You wouldn't
V-shaped
know that.
recovery,
You didn't
huh?
really see that. Didn't see that the fact that the stock market is now above where it was on January 1st of this year. I mean, just think about that.
Let's talk about the coronavirus, because the Democrats are using this as a political tool right now. In fact, their goal is to blame the president for coronavirus, which I think is absolutely disgusting, to use the pain of the people for their political gain. And they had Governor Andrew Cuomo on, who was a disaster.
The nursing home?
In the nursing home, forcing sick people into the nursing homes, causing so
And
many
that's not a
deaths.
metaphor, like he called it tonight.
Exactly,
That was a
exactly.
real policy, a real consequence of living under Democrat.
What did Cuomo call the virus? He called it the European virus.
It's-
I mean, what a joke.
it's
This
such
guy
a lie.
is unbelievable. The nursing home murderer, literally killing old people just for his own political benefit, I guess, and then trying to
the problem
deny
is
it.
that the media totally
Of
applauded
course.
him.
Right.
But here's the thing, that even it was Governor Cuomo, it was the California governor, all praised the president for what he was able to accomplish and giving them the resources they need to have dealt with the hot spots
Right.
in these areas. And yet, these Democrats continue to blame President Trump on coronavirus, which is, I think, an outrage, how they're using these people as political pawns and people suffering during this time. I think that's horrible.
It's really grotesque.
I
And
agree
It's just a
100%.
number to them to wield against their opponents. Never mind coming together, never mind being tough and holding
Right.
China accountable for not just doing it to America, but the entire world. That's where the blame lies, and that's what President Trump has always been tough on China, but he's going to continue to do so.
Let's be honest about that for a second, too. This whole convention is all about whining about President Trump, blaming President Trump. President Trump stopped travel from China in late January. What did Joe Biden say? That's xenophobic. We all know that Beijing Biden wouldn't have done that, don't we?
No, absolutely. And I think, you've got to remember, I want to ask you, what is Joe Biden's plan to deal with the coronavirus? He doesn't have one.
Doesn't have a plan.
He doesn't have a plan. In fact,
He
was
steals every plan that President Trump already put in
Right.
place.
Absolutely right. He was like, invoke the Defense Production Act. The president did that a long time ago.
Maybe he forgot. Maybe Biden forgot.
he might have forgotten.
Maybe he forgot.
That is the real Joe
He forgot.
Biden.
That's the real Joe Biden.
I
Well, the
agree.
real Joe
But they
Biden is a
can't-
radical, a plagiarist, and let's be honest, diminished.
And they can't have it both ways to say, oh, President Trump was so slow and he didn't take it seriously. Well, then why were you calling him a racist for shutting down travel before any other country did that? Because he recognized the threat.
While Nancy Pelosi was in Chinatown, San Francisco, saying,
month later.
"Oh, it's totally
Let's party
fine
in
February.
Chinatown."
Let's all hang out."
Yeah,
Well,
not good,
any
not
last
good.
thoughts?
There were so many lies and distortions. It's hard to really unpack it all, but you don't really get a sense that where was Joe Biden? And
Who?
totally diminished, not even their candidate. They're amplifying everybody else, even these no-name former so-called long-time,
Right.
lifelong Republicans.
They're called old establishment Republicans.
Right, for sure.
And are very swampy creatures.
And
by
it's
the
not
way.
fooling anyone. We see the results. If you want a case study of what the Democrats are selling tonight, look no further than New York City, Portland, Seattle, LA. It's terrible. That's why people are fleeing and running from Democrat one-party rule. That's what they would do to the entire country.
No doubt about it. All right. Thanks so much, Liz. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
We'll be right back. And we're back. This is Boris Epstein, strategic advisor for Trump 2020. And this is the real Joe Biden with Mercedes Schlapp.
Great to be here.
Senior advisor. We're back.
Yes.
And the one and only
Oh my.
Dave Bosson.
Oh my.
Yes.
That's too
2016
much
Deputy
love.
Campaign Manager and President of Citizens United. Dave, what'd you think first night of the DNC?
It was as boring as the president warned us it would be. It literally was an unwatchable show for me. I'm watching because I'm interested to see what they're trying to sell to the American people.
You got to
there
talk to
wasn't-
us about it.
Yeah, and there wasn't a
You had
lot
to do your
there.
homework.
There just wasn't a lot of meat on the bone. It was the same tired talking points that we've all been hearing for the last 4 years. They hate this president more than they love the country. And this came out, that came out tonight, I think, in speaker after speaker. Their vitriol, their anger, their hatred, it's been boiling, festering. We see it in the streets that you guys were talking about a moment ago in Portland and in Seattle and other Chicago. They hate America. These anarchists that are their activists. Those are the activists for the Democrat Party in this election cycle, and that's why they're trying to have impact right now.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So, who would you think would be the highlighted speaker this evening? Someone that kind of stood out that you were like, that's interesting. And what
You
they
know,
said.
I wasn't surprised, but you just shake your head at Susan Molinari and John Kasich being used as
Sad.
pawns. It's sad. A desperate reach for relevancy, which of course they fail because they didn't have a voice in the Republican Party, and now because they didn't have a voice, and John Kasich's he's really a failed governor, but he's a failed presidential candidate. He didn't have anywhere to turn. Nobody wanted him, and so he didn't even come to the convention in
Remember that?
2016.
Right.
I mean, so for him to be here tonight, it's a nothing. to
And
me.
where
It means
was the
nothing.
convention in 2016?
It was in Cleveland.
It was in his home state.
Right.
He begged for the 2016 convention.
That's right.
Kasich begged for it to be.
Well, he wanted to
Yeah.
be the nominee.
But how'd that
Well,
work out?
And he
That
was
didn't work.
and he was rejected soundly. He never really became a top-tier candidate. He was drummed out of the campaign, out of the race early.
I always viewed him as like the grumpy old man. Like he was just always the grumpy one.
Well, he
You
pretended
know
to
what
be
I
nice.
mean?
That was
and there
so fake.
it was so fake. But I think that Susan Molinari was an interesting one because she was a 3-term congresswoman from New York. And what's interesting is she actually lobbied
Yeah,
for
I
the
saw
Russians.
that. I
Do you
saw
think they
that.
would have
today.
vetted that? I mean, don't you think vetting should be part of this process when you pick your
Well,
speakers?
But they're
the
desperate
Democrats
for
really
Republicans.
don't do
No,
that.
they don't care.
No.
They
They're
don't-
like, Republican,
Right.
let's just grab her.
Exactly. They don't care about the facts. They care about trying to put somebody out there with a Republican next to their name. But it was shocking. I did not know that Susan Molinari, who I always thought was a establishment rhino Republican,
Works for Google.
but I
Yeah.
didn't know she was a paid Russian agent. I mean, that's telling, and the Democrat Party overlooked that in order to put her on
Especially
screen.
after how many years that they went after the president for the
With the
Russian
Russian
vote?
hoax.
Of course.
I'm sure you would love to address that issue.
I would let Boris do that.
Oh,
I'm going to pass on that. Well, listen, we came here to this, in all seriousness, actually, we can laugh about it. My family came to this country when I was 11.
I know.
We're Jewish refugees. And the Democrats tried to paint me, a Jewish refugee, just because of my name,
Right.
as some Russian spy. I mean,
Right.
it is disgusting. What they do, the ethnic concentration, the fact that they really went after me just because of my ethnicity, because
remember.
of my name, is disgusting. It's un-American, and it's not quite going high when they go low,
If
like
you-
Michelle
to
Obama.
quote
tried to
Michelle
talk
Obama.
about.
can we keep going with the high and low?
Right.
Because they love when they're like, you're just not Latina enough. I've heard that
Right,
one.
right, right.
No, you
I
have
mean,
not, really?
Serious, from the
You're
Democrats
plenty
all
Latina.
the time. Oh, believe me, when you hear me in Spanish.
I'm Italian enough,
it's-
I can assure you. of
Oh,
that.
boy.
So, okay, so that was today, right? There's not much there. Let's look broader picture. What do we expect from tomorrow? You may know something about one of the speakers tomorrow. His name is former President Bill Clinton. You ever heard of him?
A little bit. I do know the fella a little bit. But look, tomorrow night's going to be a rehash of tonight. It's going to be the anger and the hatred of President Trump, first and foremost. That's what they have to sell the American people. They don't have an agenda for the American people. They only have an agenda about hating Donald Trump. And if they can get a majority of the American people to go with them on that message, that's where they're putting all of their cards. And I got to tell you, the American people are smarter than that, because they're going to see that this is an election about big issues. And where America is going to be for their children and their grandchildren in 5 and 10 years. And the elections have consequences. And we say, guys like me have said, and all of us have said, this
Guys
is the
and
most,
gals.
guys and gals, this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Right.
We say that every 4 years. Well,
But
guess
it's
what?
really true.
This one is consequential. And so if you want to talk about higher taxes or lower taxes, law and order versus anarchy, if you want to talk about open borders versus border security, the future of America is truly at stake. And that's what November 3rd is going to
Right.
come down.
And I think like what you're not seeing in the Democrat convention is that it's like fuzzy words.
Right.
It's like fuzzy math. Remember fuzzy math? We're talking about fuzzy words. They are not directly spelling out what their agenda is, because
Right.
what you need to do is read the 102-page Socialist Manifesto
Right.
that was authored by Bernie Sanders and signed on by Joe Biden.
Sure.
The
And when
unity
you
plan?
start digging into the unity
Right.
agenda, you start to realize that they didn't address that here tonight
No.
because they know that would
They
scare
scare
the
the
American
American-
people.
absolutely.
And so
Reject
it's
it.
our job, day in and day out, to make sure that we address their absolute extreme agendas. Open borders, free health care to illegals.
The Green New Deal.
The Green
It's a
New
game-
Deal,
it's a
higher
game
taxes.
changer.
We can keep going down
Yeah.
the list, and the American people have to sit around in the kitchen table and say, what do I want to see in
Something
America?
president-
specific from the Green New Deal is killing fracking
Right.
in the energy sector
right.
in this country.
I don't
Without
think they
question.
kill fracking, but you can ban it.
Well, I think they want to kill it. They're so angry about it.
Okay,
They're
that's
they wanna
dramatic.
kill it. They
We're
could, they'd
killing
kill it.
fracking now.
And
Yes.
that's a good segue, because this is going to be an election about law and order and about
I agree.
our team defending the women and men in blue and protecting those that protect us. That's who we are as a party. That's who we are as a nation. And the Democrats are about defunding the police, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more insidious than that, because if you look, it's not just about defunding. They want to destroy the police departments. If you look at police recruitment
Right.
across the country,
It's
it is
down.
down
It is
almost 60%.
Police morale.
What young woman or young man wants to go and be a cop today when your neighbors might be wanting to attack you? You see police officers being attacked in their own homes, at their girlfriends' homes or at their boyfriends' homes, while they're attending a cookout. It is really gotten to a position that I never in my
No,
life
and they
that I
don't
would thought
condemn
would-
the violence. These
No,
Democrats
ever.
don't
Not
condemn
one
it.
time.
Biden hasn't done it. Harris hasn't done it. And I think they're just trying to play into this, well, it's peaceful protests. These are not
It's not
peaceful
peaceful.
protests.
That's
there are
garbage.
riots
That's
and looting
garbage.
happening
No, no.
across the board in these cities. I mean, you talk about Portland, you're talking about over 81 days of rioting.
Yes.
And they can't get control of the
And look
situation, and
across
they
the
don't
country.
support. And you have the
right.
sheriff who left, from
Seattle.
Seattle. She left as well because they're not getting the resources.
And
that
it's
they
not
need.
just
It's
in
an
the Midwest,
African American
That's right.
female
That's right.
police chief in Seattle.
Yep.
What more does the Black Lives Matter crowd want? Okay, than to be represented. She was an incredible police chief from everything that I read, and they drive her out of that. Instead of working with her, instead of wanting to work with her, she says, I cannot support the city council destroying this police department, and I'm not going to stand for it.
They wanted to cut her
Her-
salary.
that's right, yeah.
Because these far leftist movements are not what they call themselves.
No,
right?
not at all.
What they are is Marxist movements that want to destroy America, want to destroy
right.
the nuclear family.
Yeah.
And that is what today's Democrats are. They don't condemn it. That means they stand for it. As we wrap up this segment, David, what are you looking forward to, not just tomorrow, but Wednesday on Thursday from the Socialist Meetup?
That's good.
meetup?
The meetup. Look, Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be really something to behold, I think. They're going to try to bring the party back, I think, or at least Bill Clinton will, to some of the good old days. Hillary will continue, I think, her radicalism.
crooked?
Yeah, well, he was crooked, but he had
He was
that
crooked.
way.
You got it
Oh, yeah,
wrong.
her,
Come on,
she's
her.
crooked.
She's the
I call her
crooked.
crooked.
But you know what?
What do we
He was
call
crooked.
Bill?
He was crooked during his.
Creepy?
Yeah.
I thought that was
A lot of
Joe's
different-
line.
There was a lot of things that we called him
Yeah, a
back
lot
in
of-
the day, and so.
Just keep him away from the interns. But that's
I was going with Monica Lewinsky, and then you
Sorry,
stole that.
Dave.
So,
I was just thinking exactly what you were
Mine,
thinking.
mine.
That's
yes,
bad.
yes, yes. So look, this is going to be more of the same. It's going to be more Trump derangement syndrome. It's going to be more anger and hatred of Donald Trump, because that's all they have. They have no agenda for America. They don't have an agenda
but
on
they're-
health care or on education or on foreign policy, on our military, on our national defense. They can sell America. All they want to do is cut.
But their agenda is to transform America as we know it. And that's
No
what we
question.
have to stop.
100%.
All right, on that note, we'll be right back. Dave, thanks so much for coming on. Good times.
Thanks for having me.
man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Welcome back. This is the real Joe Biden. I'm Boris Epstein, strategic advisor to Trump 2020, with Mercedes Schlapp, senior advisor to Trump 2020.
Been a great night.
Another
so far.
senior advisor.
We're super senior advisors. I don't know what you're talking about.
Straight from Fox News.
Yes.
The one and only Steve Cortez. Steve, welcome. We're going to do something very special. You're going to read some very recent tweets from the president.
Yes.
Talking about the first night of the socialist meetup of the DNC.
So the president is tweeting actively right now,
Good.
and a lot of the tweets are centered on Governor Cuomo, because it was really, in my view, and certainly in the president's view, more importantly his view, it was the height of hypocrisy for us to get a lecture about how we should be handling COVID
Right.
from Governor Cuomo. And this is what the president, among several
The Grim
tweets,
Reaper himself.
among several tweets that he posted, he said, quote, "Now AP estimates that the real Cuomo number of people killed because of his total incompetence is 11,000 people, not the 6,000 that was originally thought." Now, mind you, these are, when he says 11,000 rather than 6,000, of course, 33,000 people in total died in New York State. He's saying people that died because of the direct negligence and incompetence of Governor Cuomo, who forced knowingly infected people back into nursing homes that became, sadly, tragically, killing centers. If New York were a country, it would be the second worst country in terms of death rate from COVID. It would be the second worst country on the planet Earth, only behind New Jersey. So New York and New Jersey together, these two states, of course, completely Democratic-run states.
I was just going to ask, who are the governors?
Yes, they are. Yeah. So these two states put together are literally the exact example of what not to do when it comes with managing a pandemic. And yet, the Democratic Party had the gall and the arrogance to try to promote Cuomo as an exemplar of a leader dealing with COVID. And by the way, I would also mention this just quickly regarding governors and the way they've handled their respective situations. Compare that to Governor DeSantis, great friend and ally of the president, more importantly, great leader for the people of Florida. The death rate in the state of Florida, even though they have a much larger elderly population than New York, the death rate there is a quarter the level of New York. So if anybody should be telling us what to do, it's DeSantis.
Marcy, something to you specifically about what do you think of Gretchen Whitmer? We haven't talked about her yet. The other nursing home murderer is Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She spoke today, too.
And I always find her to be like an authoritarian figure. I don't know if you all feel the same way about her, but the mere fact of her hypocrisy, of her shutting down Michigan, you can't go anywhere, and then all of a sudden, what was it? Her husband was out on the in Wisconsin on the lake, and I just think that it's the gall of these Democrats to be these moral dictators, accusing the president of coronavirus, blaming these deaths, and again, I just feel from a political standpoint, they shouldn't do that. They're playing with people's lives, and the mere fact when you look at Cuomo, it was the media that praised his response. But at the end of the day, we know that President Trump gave New York whatever they needed, whatever resources they needed, the ventilators, the assistance of sending over the ship up there to help the people. It was the president's very bold and quick actions that saved lives. And the mere fact that they're using this as a political tool is just disgraceful.
Well, one thing I'm thinking about in terms of tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday, right? This is supposed to be a build-up to Joe Biden. So today, if you counted, you probably heard about Joe Biden much less than you would have expected on the night of his supposed convention.
Sure.
Do we think that's going to increase as the nights go on? Or are they just
no? Look, they're going to keep him
exist?
in the basement. This is the way these people
Weekend
go.
at Joe's.
This is all about lock him up. And then Kamala throws away the key.
Lock him up.
I'm starting to get
lock him up.
They didn't talk much about Joe Biden, and they certainly didn't talk about policy, if you noticed that.
They
exactly.
I agree.
It was, I think, largely, unfortunately, rather than being a celebration of America, which is what you typically expect to be a large part of a convention, it was an indictment of America.
Yeah.
They described an America that, to me, is unrecognizable, this racist hellscape, a place where, by the way, I just said this on Fox News on the Laura Ingraham show, if that were true, if we were this systemically racist, dystopian society that was described by the Democrats tonight, why do tens, if not hundreds of millions of people all over the world who happen to be dark-skinned, why do they so yearn to come to this country? I mean, they must be fools to want to come here. So they described a place, an unrealistic place in terms of their description of America, but on top of that, very, very short on policy. Why? Because I think even they know their policies are so unpopular with the American people that they dare not go there.
Can I ask you a question? The Chicago mayor, your mayor, Lori Lightfoot, she was on today.
Yeah.
When you saw her on screen, what was your reaction?
No, listen, I have to tell you. So listen, I live in the city of Chicago. I've raised a family in the city. I've lived there for the last 25 years. Here's the unfortunate reality. Chicago is the most dangerous city in the developed world. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. We have become largely a third world-like existence because of just horrendous mismanagement in a city that the Democrats have controlled now for almost a century. So the fact that it was almost as bad as Chris Cuomo, the fact that the Democrats chose to highlight and showcase
Andrew Cuomo. Chris Cuomo's Fredo.
Oh, did I say Chris?
But
I'm sorry.
Okay. Fredo. Always good to mention a little Fredo on the show. I love that.
But it was almost as bad as Governor Cuomo.
Fredo's working out right now.
He might be.
The fact that they are trying to promote Lori Lightfoot, a completely failed politician who unfortunately presides over a city, and I try to warn America about this, and it gives me no glee to say this as a Chicagoan. Where the left will take us nationally is where Chicago is right now. And I am warning you folks, as a Chicagoan, you do not want that future for this country. Chicago is a place of danger and deprivation, and it is because of the mismanagement of liberal politicians like Lord Lightfoot. That's what I call her, Lori Lightfoot, because she thinks she's a British lord ruling over us. We cannot have that for America. That, unfortunately, is the future that the left wants for America, but it's very different from our vision.
It's a dangerous future. It's
Yes.
a dangerous future because they are allowing for this division and this hatred to happen and really not having any control in any sort of way. And it's why the president from day one, and you've all talked to him where he said, I'm the president of law and order. And we've got to get these cities back in control.
On that issue tomorrow, AOC gets her literally 60 seconds. She has said verbatim, defund the police means defund the police. She's not trying to play that two-step that Joe Biden's trying to do. Well, redirect funds. Yeah.
Right.
Why don't I redirect funds out of Hunter's bank account to mine? Let's see if that means defund. AOC says defund means defund. She wants to make our cities, New York, Miami, Chicago, a dangerous place. What do you expect out of that 60 seconds?
AOC doesn't even understand the economy. You know this.
Right.
And she also wants to be the climate czar. So she's got to shove in there somewhere like, we're going to defund the police, somehow make you pay a lot of taxes for the Green New Deal.
Regulate cow farts.
Exactly. And, let's not bring economic opportunities to New York.
Right.
I mean, that's really going to be what's going to sum it up for her.
No, and I think, too, the thing that's important to point out about AOC is that the corporate media wants us to believe that she's representative of Hispanics in this country. And, of course, we know that that's not true at all. And, by the way, who would suffer the most from defunding the police? Minorities, of course.
No doubt.
People who live in cities. Right. People who don't have the means to live necessarily in a dormant building or to afford private security or to live in gated communities. So I think that's also important, that we reveal who she really is, what kind of radical she is. She's somebody, by the way, her ancestors and our ancestors left Latin America not to repeat the mistakes of Latin America.
That's
in
right.
the United States. She's trying to import the failed systems of Latin America to the United States.
But it just shows with Bernie tonight, AOC tomorrow, there's clearly the sense that you have the radical voices, in addition to the Hollywood elites, and some of these random establishment people dominate this Democratic Party. And it just shows how the Democrat Party has fundamentally moved to the left.
Far left, right.
Far left, and Joe Biden is embracing it. And he's part of creating this big leftist monster.
No two ways about it. As we wrap up, we can look forward to the next 3 days, but then really look forward to the Donald Trump convention next week. And there's going to be a stark contrast between this far radical, defund the police, throw open our borders, promote looting and rioting raise your taxes of the far left, and the strength, the leadership, the national security, the rocket ship economic rebound of Donald J. Trump. So what do you expect out of the next 3 days as we wrap up and look to come back tomorrow?
I think, unfortunately, we're going to see the Democrats continue to appeal to Hollywood rather than the heartland. Yeah. And I think that was really the message today. And by the way, we could even see it just geographically today. The president was literally physically in the heartland. The DNC, where were they? They were at a Hollywood studio with actors and actresses. So they put on a decent show, but I call it the Wizard of Oz convention. If we look behind the curtain, we find a feeble and corrupt man who is trying to be something that he is not.
Mercy, what do you think? Next
and
3
Eva
days.
Longoria, I think, must be Dorothy. What do you think? I don't know.
Well, I think that's the perfect way to wrap up. What a fun first night for us talking about the real Joe Biden. The three of us will be back tomorrow, along with National Press Secretary Hogan Gidley, to talk about the real Joe Biden after the second night of the socialist meetup that is this year's DNC. Thank you very much. Good night, and let's make America great again.